Welcome back to What I've Learned podcast with your host, Mark Blair, and co-host Grant Krautfeld. We have a special guest today, Jay Jones, who's a young entrepreneur who has done really well for himself. And Jay, welcome.
Oh, thank you, man. Appreciate you guys inviting me.
Of course. Jay, we want to know more about you. Tell us a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah. So as far as like when it comes to real estate, I started off kind of getting that real estate bug when I was around 11, 12 years old.
11 or 12?
Yeah. Well,
selling dog houses or something?
No. Well, I'll tell you, it's funny because I'll tell you how I actually got into it. I didn't enjoy it. So my parents actually were flipping houses in Detroit.
Okay.
At this age, I just wanted to play video games and, ride my bike.
Right.
So they had me going to these properties, busting up the floors, painting and stuff. And, I didn't understand why. They both had 9-to-5 jobs as well. And, I actually didn't really.
I like their ambition.
Yeah.
This is cool.
Then that's the same thing I'm kind of still following, with the 9-to-5 job and still doing real estate. So, I started helping them doing these houses, and I found out like how much they were like making on that. So this is a pretty good, business to have, Right. And how
did your parents get into it? So they're 9-to-5ers. What was their background?
Yeah.
What brought them into it?
So it was actually my dad. My dad was always the one talking about real estate. And my mom, she liked it as well, but I think it was my dad. He actually owned two 8-unit apartments, when he was like in his 20s. So he kind of was doing the real estate thing early in his life as well. And then he kind of just stuck with it,
Is this a generational thing? Did it start like from your grandpa to your dad, or did your dad, was he the first pioneer of it?
I think my dad was the first one, because he actually brought his dad on board, from what he told me, kind of helping him with these two 8-unit apartments. Right. I think there were two 4 units, which were like 8. So it started with my dad. And he just was always into real estate.
Right.
And, I just kind of naturally, over time, hearing him always talking about equity and all these things, it kind of just grew on me. So when I'm 11, 12, I don't care about that.
Talking all the real estate lingo at 12 years old?
No, not at all. But I'm just hearing him talk, and he would take us to open houses. And, I'm just always like, around houses. And then when I get to like 20 and 21, I'm like, what do I want to do? Like, what do I like? I was like, I actually didn't mind it.
Oh, hold on. You're skipping the rap phase. Tell us what.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Oh, my rap time, huh? It didn't really last too long. I just, it was a short career. But yeah, I just, as far as, real estate, it just kind of started then. It kind of grew. And probably when I was like 18, 19 is when I actually started saying, hey, I kind of like this real estate thing. Let me learn more about it. Mm-hmm. And then that's kind of when I started learning about wholesaling. And
how did you start learning about wholesaling? What steps were you taking at this point? Like, what exactly are you doing?
So I started wholesaling I was 27. So, pretty much like I tried to buy a house at 21 and it failed. Right. So I said, I really want to get into real estate. How do I do that?
What did you learn from the first opportunity that didn't work out?
That didn't work out. Yeah.
What did you learn from that?
I tried to buy a condo in Charter Oaks. Okay. And I had it under contract, and I was trying to use it as a rental. I remember because I was renting, and I was like, I would just like to save my money, live in this house for a year and then rent it out. And the house didn't appraise, so I had to bring more money to the table. So I learned the process of a transaction during that point.
Yeah.
And I told myself I would never lose that desire to try to get my first investment. But I failed at that time. I didn't have the money to finish the transaction, but I just said, I'm going to stay with that. And one day I'm going to actually buy me an investment property. So I failed at that. So I felt like I didn't have enough money at the time. And I just started just learning, and really didn't click with wholesaling until about 5 years after that first failed attempt of trying to get me a rental property.
I love how consistently you stuck with it for so many years, knowing that it was going to work out at some point. Yeah. So you fail forward. It's okay that you failed, but you learned the transaction, you learned something out of it.
Yeah.
Can you kind of describe to us what took you 5 years to put together to create your wholesale business? What was taking you the time? Were you just busy working? Did you have life going on?
Yeah. So, I've always wanted to start a business. So, as an entrepreneur, I tried to start up, like you mentioned the rap, thing. I tried to do like a studio, try to build like a studio. I even had a clothing company. I actually still wear it to this day. It was called Live Life Complete. So I started a t-shirt company. So during that time I was doing those things, they really didn't take off. And I just said, I want to do something I love to do. And I literally wrote down on a piece of paper like 10 things, trucking business, real estate, all this stuff. And I said, what do I really want to do? What do I enjoy? So I like looking at houses. I like being able to interact with people, help people. And one day I can possibly flip a house or own rentals and live my lifestyle. So I just stuck with real estate. And I said, you know what? If I never get a property or if I never do anything or earn a dollar in real estate, I'm going to try my best. And I just kind of stuck with it, man. And it actually panned out. You know, I started actually doing transactions, learning about wholesaling, which is my first step in real estate.
So for people who are listening in and they're not really completely sure what wholesaling might be.
Yeah.
So just so you kind of understand, so when you see those bandit signs and stickers on light posts that say "I'll buy your home for cash," wholesaling is basically a point where somebody comes across a property that isn't very desirable to the retail market in the condition that it's in, typically. Right. And someone like yourself will get that property under contract, and they'll take that property under contract and basically sell the contract, which is legal in the state of Michigan up to, I think, 5 or 6 properties until you have to get a license. So just so our listeners understand, if you are a licensed real estate agent, you actually have to take your finder fee, commission, or whatever you want to call it, through your real estate brokerage according to LARA. So if you are holding a real estate license, and you're listening to us, so that's one thing I can tell you, because I actually personally called LARA to talk to their legal department to ask that question, and they said, yeah, that's the only way to do it. Yep. There's no other way around it. So if you're doing it another way and you get audited, maybe you want to retain a lawyer. So.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I was really just trying to do anything, it took to get into real estate, honestly, and that was like kind of my first way. And I said, well, if this is where I have to start to get where I want to get to, that's what I started off doing, was wholesaling.
Tell us about your first deal. How did it go? The first one's always the best one.
Dude, my first wholesale deal, actually, it was probably one of the worst ones, and the rest of them were actually pretty good. So this was before I was a real estate agent.
Tell us the first one, though. What happened?
So I get this house in E-Course under contract, right? It's basically a crack house, basically, right? So they were like, I was told there were squatters in there. And it was abandoned house.
All the desirable features that someone's looking for.
It's something everybody wants, right? Boarded up windows, a gutted house. Right. It was actually a big house or whatever. And I found this lady, had a website. She filled it out, gave her a call. And this is my mistake. I put it under contract without even physically seeing the house. I just looked at it. And I think
So that's one of your key points of advice here, is always walk the property.
Yeah, I mean, when you're first starting out, because you don't know what you're looking for. So, I just listened to her and I actually was trying to find a real estate agent to help me get comps. I didn't even know where to start. So, I get this house under contract, and I end up working with this guy. I ended up working with this other wholesaler who wanted to JV on this property. So,
for kindness reasons, we're not going to name you.
Yeah, we're not going to name you, but hopefully you do watch this.
But you know who you are.
Yeah. So, anyways, I ended up basically getting this deal. I really wanted to help the lady out. She was actually a real estate agent who had this property. She wanted to make it a bread and breakfast.
Oh, that sounds good.
And she just ran short of money, so this house just pretty much got vacant. So, and I work with this guy, and he tells me he has a buyer and everything's lined up, and the deal falls through. Right, and then I found out he was trying to take
This is your first experience. You're probably stressing out at this point.
Oh my God, man! I was like, I'm telling my wife, I'm like, I don't even know what I'm gonna do. I'm like, pulling my hair out when I had it.
You literally pulled your hair out.
Yeah. So at this time, I didn't know what to do. I'm like, man, I'm failing at this.
Right.
And something said, well, just keep going. And I ended up finding a buyer the week later. She turned this house into something very beautiful. She sold it for I think $100,000, bought it for $14,000.
Wow.
She did an awesome job. And I felt great because I got to help this lady.
Right.
This house was just sitting vacant for years. And then, my buyer, who I ended up developing a relationship with, she got a great property as well. But I was nervous, man. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to sell this property. How am I going to do this? But I learned from that situation that helped me with other deals, that also helps me also as a real estate agent, how to handle stressful situations when things don't go according to plan, how to deal with it, and that first deal, I'm telling you, it felt like it was a long time. But when I look at it, I'm like, it It wasn't that long, but when you're going through it, you feel like it's like the end of the world, man.
It feels like time is kind of slowing down.
Oh my God. Yeah, but the result, I got to close it.
Right.
And it was a win in the column, and I felt great afterwards, you know?
I think I'm really getting from you, there sounds like, just in your voice, a lot of joy of the transaction coming together where you found the right buyer and you turned it into something beautiful, and you being a part of that.
Yeah.
I think that part makes you really happy. I can just kind of tell talking to you right now.
Yeah.
And so did this kind of trend follow forward as you moved forward? Or did things get, did you have a lot of rocky roads as you kept building up your business?
Yeah, I mean, as I started like building, I mean, there were some times where, it wasn't as easy. I'm working a 9 to 5 and I'm trying to figure out.
So you've been working a full-time job the whole time while you're doing this?
Yes.
How are you juggling? How are you juggling all this?
Yeah, till this day, I don't know, man. Honestly, I work.
It just works.
Yeah, like I work with my wife. I try to tell her what I'm doing, so I could, right now in my business, I do a lot of cold calling.
Right.
2.5, 3 hours just calling.
This is Monday to Friday?
This is Monday through Friday.
Monday to Friday.
So,
okay.
maybe a day I might miss it because of 9 to 5 or something, but 3 times a week for sure I'm calling. Whether that's a Saturday or a Sunday, I got to make that 3 times work. Right. But working with my wife, figuring the schedule out, I just tell her, like, this is what I want to do. She understands that. She supports that. And so I just try to do my best to, make it happen as far as, like, doing my part. Because I'm a one-man show right now.
Sound like a blessed man.
I'm trying to be, man. So, yeah, I just try to make it happen, man. Like, this is what I love. So, I just try to make that time.
My signature question is, do you ever sleep? That's my signature.
Not very much, man. Not with a baby, 3 years old, one on the way.
Yeah.
Not much, man, but I try to make it work.
That's okay. That's all right. So how long do you stay in your wholesale business till you start deciding it's going to be time to get a real estate license?
It's about 2.5 years.
Okay.
So I'm doing wholesale for 2.5 years. It's actually doing pretty good, right?
Yep.
I mean, I made almost as much as I made on my full-time job wholesaling. It's
panning out.
Yeah, and my whole time, I'm looking like to buy a property, because I started figuring out like, you can wholesale and make all this quick cash, but you got to put it back out into marketing.
Let's go back to work.
Yeah. And then if you're not closing deals, because there was a time where I didn't close a deal for a couple months, and I had hired a virtual assistant, right? So I have to pay for her. So now I'm like, I have someone who's actually depending on me to pay them, and I'm not closing a deal. So now $500 a month is a lot when that's 2-3 months and you haven't closed a deal. And now you're looking like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? So, I had to make some tough decisions.
Started praying then.
Yeah. And then I'm going to say the magic word, COVID hits.
Right.
2020.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I think it was like maybe 2 months. I haven't closed the deal. I'm like, what am I going to do now, man? Like, I don't want to, have this lady think I'm going to pay her. And, I just cut her off. So I gave her notice like, hey, if we don't close the deal in the next 2 months, I may have to let you go. It was a tough decision because I enjoyed working with her. She was awesome. She helped me with my admin work. That's all she did was help me with admin. And then 2.5 years, I said, you know what? You've said this question to me. Hey, why don't you get your real estate license? Yeah. There was a guy named Todd. He's like, hey, man, you would be great. Why don't you become a real estate agent? I mean, you love working with sellers. He mentioned how, my customer service skills were really great with, sellers and stuff. And I said, I wouldn't mind, but at the time, you're making money, you're moving. You're like, I'll get around to it. COVID happens, things slow down. I said, you know what? I'm going to buckle down for the next 3 months. I'm going to just learn this real estate agent stuff. And I'm going to attack the business. And I literally studied for 3 months, and I got my license. And it actually helps because now I can help buying, selling. I also have access to the MLS for when I, do purchase properties.
Comparables as well.
Yeah. So it actually expands my business by becoming a real estate agent. So now I'm still working a 9 to 5 job, and then I'm becoming a real estate agent, also becoming an investor. So it actually helps. But I had to kind of
How did your wholesale business improve by getting the real estate license when you started getting access to more accurate real information? So people that waste their time using Zillow or bank websites that they try to use like a mortgage calculation version to get a market price.
Yeah.
There's so many different factors when you look at the property photos, the lot lines, the finishes. There's tremendous differences from property A, B, C, and D. So when you're wholesaling, it actually really messes up your ARV after repair value calculation So you can't accurately tell an investor, hey, you can sell this home for X number of dollars.
Correct.
Because I've been looking at Zillow.
Yeah.
Right. So how much of an astronomical
My estimate says.
Right. The Zestimate, right? That thing's like usually always wrong. It's been right a couple times, but it's very rare. Yeah, very rare. But
actually, 2 days ago, it was $20,000 off.
Oh man!
When I talked to somebody, so it's still pretty wrong.
Yeah, that's a lot of money off too. But so when I got access to like the MLS, when it comes to wholesaling, now I can actually look at properties, be more confident. Like, oh, okay, well, this house has this, because I had a real estate agent that was giving me comps, and I would pay him when I closed the deal. But now I can confidently say, well, this house is worth this. And that's how I was able to make a decision when I purchased my first flip. I looked through all these houses, I see what they were going for, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to base off the numbers. And I felt more confident with just adding being a real estate agent to it. And it's funny because that same lady that I bought a house from, right? She's now going to buy a house in a couple months, and then she's going to use me. So I'm like, well, that helps. Being a real estate agent, now I just made an opportunity happen from just having that. So that was awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. I think it's good if we, do any kind of business together and you can identify someone's skills and talents, and you can, that's why I said to you, get your real estate license. But clearly it made sense for you. What would you say to somebody else who's thinking the same thing right now? What do they need to have to be successful?
Just in general, or?
Yeah, in your opinion.
Honestly, in my opinion, just the passion and just the kind of like the no nonsense attitude. Like, I'm just going to make this happen no matter what.
It's a really strong mindset.
Yeah, you don't have to get all the fancy tools. You really just need to just find out what can I do today? And I don't care if it's something that's like hard work now and then you can find a smarter way to do it later. I think you just start somewhere. When I started my real estate journey with wholesaling, I was doing the yellow letter thing. Of course I could pay all that money. I said, let me just do something now. And then after 2 months, I wasn't doing the same thing, but I improved it. But
you're going to evolve every stage of your career in life. You evolve
exactly.
So you learn from what you did in the past, and you make it quicker,
make it
better, faster, whatever.
Yeah.
And but if you don't start somewhere, you don't do anything.
Yep. I think I seen a quote the other day. It was like, "You want to be successful, but you're just so afraid to fail." And I'm like, that's true. You're just like failure. It's like more in the head, right? You just feel like it's so bad. But I've learned a lot of things from failing. I've learned a lot of things when people told me no, and I had to go figure it out. And then I actually learned like, oh, well, it wasn't really that bad. When you actually have to figure it out, you just got to do it. But if somebody wants to start, I would say just start somewhere. Don't be afraid to fail, and just do the simple thing. Like, just do it over time. And then as you're consistent, the window, it just opens. There's no way that you're going to continue to do something for 6 months consistently and something not happen.
Yeah.
So you just got to do it.
Like you were saying, how you're at least 3 days a week, you're putting in the time, making those cold calls, right? And that's the consistency that I'm sure if you didn't do that and you weren't doing that,
I wouldn't have anything.
Yeah, you wouldn't be getting any wholesale deals, like maybe 1 or 2 a year. And it's like with any business, if you're not consistently putting in that effort every single week, you're never going to see the results.
I agree.
And it's all the behind the scenes stuff.
It's hard.
People see.
It's hard.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how do you feel like when your week's not going good? What do you do to get back into it? What are some things that you recommend?
Have you been thinking of selling your home? Maybe buying a home? What about investing in some real estate? Well, if you're looking for a top-performing team to help you with that, then what you're looking for is at mysoulteam.com. Now, this real estate team has a servant's heart and a proven ability to negotiate on behalf of you, their client. They care about you and your community. So why don't you support them in their local business by visiting mysoulteam.com or calling or texting at 248-213-8606. That's 248-213-8606 for mysoulteam.com. That's mysoulteam.com.
For me, honestly, I like to work out a lot, so I like to just kind of get my mind off stuff, and just do what I like, whether it's just going out, being with the family, just kind of getting your mind off of it and then getting back to work. That works for me, because sometimes when I'm calling, it's a bad week. You know, I'm like, here I am. I made these calls. I've got
just off your rhythm, like you're just not feeling it, like you're not,
like because I cold call and stuff myself, and we're making those calls, and there's just you'll go a day, and you got nothing. Like you just spent 2 to 3 hours, and you're like, you almost feel like you wasted your time.
You do,
but you just never know. It's a numbers game when you're just making those calls. You just never know when you're going to come across that one person that's like, yeah, here you go, and it's that the best deal you've had of your entire career.
Exactly.
And if you could have a whole week, like you said, of just every
Nothing.
day, you're like,
suffering.
You're at the end of the week, you're like, you start to think, you're like, man, I don't even know, like, am I going to have any deals coming up?
That's true.
And then the next week you get like 4, and you're like, it's funny how it works, but it's the consistency of if you don't do it, it's never gonna come to fruition.
Yeah, if you don't do it, it's just you're gonna get 0 results. So that's just the way it is. And it's funny because that same thing happened when I bought this property I have now. I remember I was calling for like 3 hours. I was on this 3-hour stretch in like 2019 where I was like, every time I call, it's 3 hours or nothing. And I got burnt out. Like it was like 3 months, and I was calling, and this one lead comes through, and I literally remember like just sitting at the table, and I'm like, man, this is getting old. This is getting old. Is anything working? And I was going to finish up in like 10 minutes, I remember. And I speak to this lady. We spoke for like an hour. And that deal, it took me about 1 year and 4 months to finally close it. But that was my first property that I bought. After I was like so tired of calling. I was like, is this thing even working? You know?
Was it worth it?
Yeah, 100%.
Cool.
That one call was worth it. So now when I have those same days where I'm like, here I am, it's like 2 hours, and I've talked to 5 people. They all told me no. I said, you know what? Just keep dialing, keep going, you know, and then eventually something sticks. I mean, something's going to have to stick, you know.
And one of the things that really changed my mindset early on when I started in real estate, and there's a lot of very intelligent people and just business sense, not just in real estate, but you know, in the business. And they were talking about how, you know, you got to break down what your hourly rate is. Like if you go out there and you're prospecting, you're making calls to try to find deals. At the end of the day, if you spent 20 hours to get that one deal, and then another 20 hours to get it closed, and you made X amount of dollars, now translate that into the 40 hours you put into that one deal. Yeah. And if you look at it and you're like, man, okay, that works out to be like $200 to $300 an hour. At the end of it, that's worth it. But people don't. They see it in the short term, like a couple hours in, they're like, man, like this just isn't worth it.
That's true.
And it's like, no, it is, because even if you spent 20 hours just to get that one deal, that's worth it at the end for if you get a big enough check. Yeah, it's going to be paying 10 times what you're going to make at Target or at McDonald's.
That's what I did. So with a few of the deals I closed that was wholesaling, I used to dock my time. And I remember, because when you're working on a deal,
you're not including shampooing your hair in that.
No, not the shampoo part, right? When I had
just check your hair.
Because I used to go, okay, if I had a call, how long was that? If I went to the property, how long was that, right? Because when you're dealing with a deal, sometimes it seems so long, but when you look at it from just that one deal, I think I spent like 4 hours on this one deal when I actually put it down. And I said how much I made. I said, hey, that's not that bad. And it was more than where I would ever make.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Yep. Right.
You know? But yeah, like you said, like you got to just put it into that one deal and say, how much did I make? You know, did I gain another opportunity from that as well?
Yep.
Okay, this is worth it. But you got to look at it from that standpoint, though. You know, you can't look at it like, man, this is getting old. I'm going to quit.
Yep.
Well, but you're going to have those days, though. You're going to feel like that.
Oh, yeah. I have them all the time.
Yeah.
And and you just, the more you have them, though, and then the more good ones you have because you're just consistent, it really starts to like, yeah, today's just a bad day. Tomorrow's going to be better. And you just start getting that better mindset on it instead of like early on when you're like, man, that's just, you know, especially early on, you're not as savvy with what you're saying, how you're talking to people, what you're doing. Your results are definitely going to be less because you're just not as efficient and you're not as good as what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But as you get better and as you keep doing it, the same thing with consistency. The more conversations you're having, the better it is.
It's and natural.
The easier you can talk to people, the better you can, you know, convey what you're trying to say. Yeah. Like you said, we're early on, you said you had to pick out your like walk properties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'm sure you don't even have to. You can especially like with the MLS and different things, sources, you can kind of figure it out without having to do it. And you can have really good conversations with people now because you've made, you know, tens of thousands of calls to people and talk to so many people.
That's true.
But
Very
I'm
true.
sure, just like myself, you get hung up on a lot or something.
Oh my God, yeah. It's funny because like my mom used to watch. Like one time she came over, she's cleaning my basement, right? Great mom, right? And I'm in the basement. I had like Mojo dialer, so you know how it just goes through the next number, the next number. Right. She's listening to me. One person cussed me out really bad. And then another person tells me no. She's like, "So you're just gonna call the next person?" I said, "Yep."
Yep.
You know, sometimes you're like, sometimes they get to you, right? Yeah. But for the most part, she's like, you're just gonna keep going. I said, you got to, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's one. Every person's not gonna be this same person, right? Like yesterday, I had a call with a guy. I think I spoke to maybe like 4 people, and I ended up talking to this guy in Warren. He has like this beautiful house. It's like got like 5 bedrooms or some crazy crap. We talked for like 30 minutes.
Yep.
I might sell, but give how much you think it's worth, and hey, I might list it. So now I got an opportunity.
Yeah.
But it was starting off as another bad day. One call, we speak for like 30 minutes. Great, here's an opportunity.
Right.
But yeah, and then you just get those times where they hang up on you. You get so used to no. I think it just makes you stronger, to be honest. So
yeah,
I'm okay with it.
I felt like when I first started, the fear was like that first call, or like the first getting over that first call, and then the ringing. And sometimes I remember early on too, my thought process was always like, please don't pick up, please don't pick up. That was just that's internally, like, you're just like, man, because you're just afraid that it's going to be a bad call.
Yeah.
And I've since then I've had bad calls, but I've had tons of good calls. And now I just every call I go into, it's like, this is gonna be a great call, regardless of how it comes out, and it changes my. I'm actually like, please pick up, because I don't want to miss a potential opportunity for it to jump to the next call. Like, I'd rather take this call, because to me now it's every person that doesn't pick up is somebody like that. I'm like, man, that could have been something, or that could have been somebody, but they didn't pick up.
They didn't pick up.
Yep.
You're okay with a solid no.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you hate a maybe or a could have.
Yeah.
That's one thing. You tell me solid no, like F off. Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to sell. But
Not today, though.
Yeah. But
I'll try again tomorrow.
And those I've learned that, those are people that usually I don't want to work with anyways. If that's how they treat people right off the bat, with little respect and little dignity, regardless of who they are, what they're doing, then it's probably not going to be a great person to have to work with, in a deal or over the long haul. Not all the time, but that's somebody's cussing me off right off the bat. That's probably not going to work out very well.
That's not going to work well with your business.
Yeah. So they weed themselves out pretty quick too.
Yeah.
So, but you said now that you have your real estate license, that opens up the door for you too.
Yes.
Now, like you said, you have some guy that, maybe it could be a wholesale deal, but maybe he wants to list it.
Yeah.
And now you can list it as well.
Yeah.
And you have that more opportunity for people that you're working with.
Correct. Yeah. And that's what I love now, because now I look at things differently. Before I was only I was a one trick pony. I was looking for one type of deal.
Right.
Now, as a real estate agent, I'm like, well, I can help on all aspects now.
So how did you adjust yourself? So say you're on the phone with somebody, they're talking, they're like, you know what? Well, maybe I want to list it because I can get way more money than taking your cash offer instead.
Yeah.
So how do you start spinning the conversation? Like, how do you start presenting yourself as a great realtor now versus because you were just a wholesaler a minute ago?
Exactly. Yeah.
So does that transition even work?
So far, I've seen it kind of. Because usually when someone wants a cash offer, they'll say, all right, what's your offer?
Right.
And then I let them know, okay, if this offer doesn't work, I'm also a real estate agent as well, but I definitely go ahead and entertain that. So I'll tell them my price, right? So they'll shoot me down. And I'll say, well, by this time I've already known the condition of the home. I'll say, hey, you think about listing it? It's a great time. It's a great market if you're looking to list your home. Mm-hmm. And then that's when we get into the real estate agent aspect of it. I just try to transition out of it pretty quickly once I know it's like a hard no. And then I try to sell myself, on the real estate agent part of it.
Do you think there's a disadvantage of because you had already approached them with a cash offer and now all of a sudden you're trying to quickly switch it over?
Yeah.
Do they still have the same level of confidence in the conversation? Or do they now feel like now it's getting all salesy and now he's trying to get me to list it?
Yeah.
So.
I haven't noticed it from the conversations I've had when I actually have that conversation.
Right.
Because a lot of times they'll say, I'm not looking for a cash offer because I know it's going to be a low ball offer. Right. So they'll start off with that. And then, again, I just try to just start talking about like, okay, well, tell me about the property, or how long have you owned it? And I just try to find like that little question where I could try to just get that conversation going, and then I can, kind of go to the real estate agent route. So I try to, do a little maneuvering, because I'm also looking for deals to buy as well. So, if it's something I can't purchase, then I'll just say, okay, well, is there something I can help you with? Do you have any real estate needs, or do you know anyone? And then I just try to transition the conversation as quickly as I can.
Yeah.
It's a little tough because, like you said, now I'm coming in with the, hey, cash offer and real estate agent, so it's a little different, but I also feel like I don't want to miss that opportunity.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It kind of, it's a strange analogy, but it kind of makes me picture like a nurse showing up with a needle and saying, hey, I'm going to give you a shot.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden be like, don't worry, you don't have to take the shot because you said, no, but here's a pill.
Yeah.
You should have offered me the pill before. So, right.
Yeah. So it's a weird type of approach, but it's it gets the conversation rolling. So
right.
But until I get something else, I could probably work on that one. But so far it's all right.
And I'm sure like you've ran into, there's plenty of people that out there that they don't want to hassle with selling the house.
Yeah.
There is a number that they're happy with taking, and it as long as it's just an easy deal, right?
Correct.
Where they don't have to go through the showings and go through the process. It's just just give me the cash, and they have it in a week or 2 weeks, and it's like
and you'll know it.
Yeah, and so to not offer them if you went in straight with just straight real estate deal, especially if their situation is. Obviously, if it's a great house, like
they're going to want to list.
Want to list.
Yeah.
But if it's one that's not very desirable, like Mark was mentioning in the market, then a cash offer could really be, because even if you do list it, it might not be that much more, and for the hassle that might have to go through, things like that. And so that cash offer, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing for the properties that you're looking at. On day-to-day basis.
I think it's the way you present it. I think you have to make it clear to the person. There's all this water damage, there's this mold, so you got all this scary stuff that retail buyers will literally run away from in most cases.
Yeah.
So if they're embarrassed and they can't fix it financially, and their best option is a cash offer, it's sometimes in their best interest to go down that road, right?
Yeah.
So I think for you might want to even incorporate the fact of saying, like, I'm gonna offer you this cash offer right now, but what I also want to tell you is that if this doesn't work out, I want to help you list it on the market, but my cash offer will still stay valid for 30 days. And it'll be an option you can go to if after experiencing what the real estate market has to offer is not right for you.
Yeah. Give them an opportunity, that choice. Yeah. I mean, that's something I could definitely add to the belt.
I can see you doing that.
Yeah.
Closing deals left, right, and center.
Yeah. There you go. That's the goal, right?
So now that you have you said you have your first property, right, that you're own, and now you're going to be rehabbing it, right?
Correct.
Selling it. Is that now the new avenue that you're going to kind of like lean into a little bit more? Is that your plan?
That's my plan.
Future?
That's my plan. So it's funny because this first property, I never wanted to flip a property. I always thought I was going to buy a rental because, again, I want to try to supplement that income that I'm on my 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But I got this property and it was such a good deal. And I said, okay, if I buy this home, I could sell this property and then buy 2 rentals and maybe do 1 or 2 flips a year. So now that's a new business avenue that, I'm able to kind of go down.
So you're currently trying to flip a home, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So how did that come about?
So
how did you find that deal, and what stage are you at right now?
That was during that time I was tired of cold calling, man, and I kept going. But I found her through cold calling. It was funny because I called her on like a code violation list on her house, and she's like, "No, I don't want to sell my house." And I asked the question of like, well, do you have any other houses that you want to sell? I've asked this question so many times. Some people say yes, some people say no. And she said, well, I do have this other house. And then we went into that conversation. Now, this house needed rehab, needed work. And it needs work, right?
A lot of work.
Yeah, but we're almost done with it. But so I called her, and she was willing to sell it to me. And it took me a year and 4 months to actually close this deal. Like every month, I'm following up with her. She's like, I gotta go to the
this
house.
is the deal that you mentioned previously. Okay.
Yeah,
now it's coming back to me.
I gotta go to the house. I gotta clean this out. Oh, my kids got sick, and this was month after month, right? My wife was like, man, after you get done with this, you're not gonna marry this lady or something, Because it's like every month I'm following up with her, And finally, October of like 2019 or 2020 or November, she's finally like, you know what? I'm ready to sell. I'm ready to sign. And at
That's an incredible level of follow up, by the way.
Yeah. And I was able to get like all my funds together, and I was like, I'm gonna buy this house. And I said that, because I was wholesaling. I was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna buy this house.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna start like my wealth wheel with my family with this.
Yeah.
And thankfully, thank God everything worked out, and I was able to buy it. I used a private lender, because I look at wholesaling as a crash course to learning how to buy properties. I'm working with cash buyers. I'm seeing how they're purchasing stuff. I'm looking at HUD statements like, oh, they're using this lender that's giving them this for the purchase price. And then now I get to implement all of that. And I said,
That's
I'm going to buy
incredible how you
that.
incorporated all that.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
I bought it. And we should be done in the middle of April, and I should be listing, for sure.
Okay, so we'll do a short little follow-up podcast with you once you're done the house and it closes, and we'll share that with our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely tell you some things about that flipping thing, man. It looks nice, HD TV and everything, man. But when you got to put your real money into it and your real ideas, it's not hard, but I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
Some tough decisions.
Yeah. And I'm thankful that, I was able to get it going. I had the money to get everything, moving and grooving. But it's tough, man. Like when it's like actually yours and, you got a loan on that house with your private lender and okay, I got to get this thing moving, what do I do? And I got blessed with I call them my dream team, right? Because I have a YouTube channel and that's what I call them. They're awesome. They're helping me learn how things are supposed to go. So I'm always learning. I'm always learning.
That's great.
I'm seeing how they're doing it, what I should do next, how much this cost, and I'm noticing it. So the next time I should be able to fly through. Like now when I go to houses to look at, I already know what I'm looking at. Okay, this house doesn't have trim. This house does this hot water tank furnace is old. So now I know, right? Just from
you're
that
analyzing
experience.
it in more detail, and it's getting a little faster for you, right?
Correct.
Your process is
getting better for
getting
sure.
better,
Yeah.
So Jay was telling us about an experience he had with Kevin.
Yeah, and that's what I was actually gonna bring up because Kevin, when he was on, I know you know him, and he has talked about how just over the years, because he's done so many of these,
Yeah, I've seen that podcast.
now he like yourself, or you're getting to the point where you can just walk in and point things out, and you just start to know.
Yeah.
And he's even mentioned how he has a rating scale of the houses that he walks into and stuff.
Yeah.
And
The A, B, and C.
Yeah, he's very, very knowledgeable about just homes because he's done it so much. But if you ask him, just like yourself, you go back to the early days, he had no idea what was going on. He was nowhere near as knowledgeable with the stuff, and that's just experience. That's just putting the effort in, putting the time in, and consistently doing it. And eventually, that's how you become the expert. It's
you got to do
the hours in.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can't become an expert off of reading books. It can help. It can help. Kind of polish your starting point. Get you going a little bit with some different reading and podcasts and YouTube. A ton of different stuff that can help you.
Right.
But until you're in the trenches, there's nothing that's going to make you that expert other than being there.
That's true. Can I tell my cool Kevin story I got?
Tell it.
So I've never met Kevin yet, right? I do plan to meet him maybe over coffee or something, or if he drinks a beer, so I'll hit him up. So Kevin actually, he's given me some recommendations on the flip I'm working on now. Like I said, hey, you got a hardwood guy.
Right.
Hey, how's the city of East Point? And he actually has responded back to me, which is, I'm thinking, people are busy, right? There's some cash buyers you reach out to, they don't have any time for you. He's actually reached out to me, right? I sold him a wholesale deal in East Point. And it was funny because this was actually another one of those tough stories. I had this house under contract, and it was another one of those things where I had 4 or 5 cash buyers come through, and they're like, oh, man, this thing needs $50,000 in rehab. Oh, yeah, this isn't going to work. And again, I'm at that crunch time where I'm like, alrighty, am I going to sell this deal or not? And here comes Kevin, right? like
honest and transparent.
Right.
He's got a great reputation for doing good business.
I don't think I even talked to him on the phone.
Right.
He sends me a text message because I had to put it back on my cash buyers. So it's like, hey, price reduction. Here we go. He says, hey, I want to go see that property in East Point. I'm like, all right, here we go. You know, he's going to walk through the property. He's going to tell me he needs $50,000 in rehab again, right? And he walks through. He's like, all right, I'll take it. And I'm like, all right, we, send there this morning deposit to, I think it was Michigan Investment Title or something. No, it was Regions Title. And I'm like, let's see how serious this guy is. Like within 2 hours, I'm like, oh, he's going to buy it. And
Kevin doesn't mess around.
Yeah, and then it was just that quick. And then it was funny because I ended up speaking to Jamie at Regions Title when we closed, and she's like, "Oh, have you ever met Kevin?" And I said, "No, I didn't get a chance to meet him, and I was gonna try to get here off when I got off work." She's like, "Yeah, he's a real serious cash buyer, real cool guy." And I was like, "Okay." And I kept his number, and it's funny, like I said, now I bought my property and I was able to ask him questions because it's funny because I've cold called him before I knew who he was. I think I cold called him about his property in East Point. Right. Before I knew who Kevin was.
Yeah.
Right. And then now, he actually responded to me and say, hey, East Point's not bad. You just got to make sure you're doing this and that. Hey, I don't have a guy for this, but hey, I got a hardwood guy. So that's my cool Kevin story. I'm like, hey, he's been helpful for me, And then I seen this podcast that you guys did. Yeah. I was like, oh, Kevin was on here. So I started learning his story, and I didn't know he was a cop. Yeah, I didn't know the guy still works, man.
All these tickets that you've had that you could.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know, right? I could have been going to Kevin.
Texting Kevin, but
man, if I was in Sterling Heights, man, hey Kev, can you take care of this for me? But yeah, I didn't know, and still he still works to this day. Didn't know that, so I was like, man, this is cool, So I plan to meet him one day.
All right, cool.
Awesome.
If you don't meet him soon enough, we'll have you both on here.
Yeah. And I'll be taking notes because I'll be learning, man. Because I'm trying to get on Kevin's level.
Kevin's phenomenal. So we enjoyed that podcast. Yeah. We're looking forward to seeing him again soon. So is there anything you can tell us that you'd tell your younger self? Any old advice, like any just excellent feedback on mindset and consistency and just having a schedule and sticking to that. I like that 3-hour thing that you were doing. And, your mom is there witnessing, are you going to keep taking these calls? And you're telling her, like, yeah, that's what I do. Yeah. You just have this awesome mindset. So tell us something that you tell your older self if you could change it up a little bit. Anything you do different? Yeah, I mean, I would just tell, my younger self, just, when you find that thing you love, you just latch onto it, learn everything you can. I think I said older self. I meant to say younger self. Older self. I'm already getting older, man. Let's go back to younger self. Yeah, I'm already getting older, dude. Don't remind me. I just had my birthday, so, after 30s, it's a little different for me. But in nap time, right? Siesta, it's real.
Right. Especially with a second kid on the way.
Oh, God, yeah, no, man. Yeah, they don't give you much sleep either. So. Yeah. But I would just tell myself, like, find that thing you love. Don't worry about what society's telling you that you need to do, because everyone's story is different. Yeah. Just find what you love, man, and just latch onto it, and win, lose, or draw, just go for it. And set your level of success and just try to go for it. That's it. Yeah, have a standard. Yeah. Follow a standard. Have a system. That's it. Go after it. That's all I would say, man.
Yeah. And I love the thing you said earlier about, not being afraid to fail. And you're going to fail. No matter what you do, you're going to fail. It's going to happen. It's going to happen one way or another at some point. Yeah. And it's just how you take that fail and how you take that loss and move on from it.
Yeah. And what's funny is, like, it seems like when I listen to people's stories and testimonies, when they talk about their failures, it seems like it's always something that's built them to be better. Yeah. And so
adds character.
Yeah. And it's like, all right, like you said, failure is all in your head. It's so big, but it makes you better. You learn. Like, you don't learn when everything goes your way. Like, if that first call you got was a deal, you're like, oh man, this is easy. Oh man, I got a call. I got a deal on my first call. And now you're like, all right, I understand that things are going to happen. I'm going to have to learn from them. And it's either going to make me sink or fly. Yep. What are you going to do?
And it's funny, you say that when you're listening to people's stories and their failures have built them up. Those are the successful people, because you only listen to the successful people. The people that you don't hear their stories of, they failed too, but they didn't push through the failure. Yeah. They let it take them over. They didn't continue on, and they didn't, they just let that failure not teach them anything.
Yeah.
And that's why we don't listen to their stories because they didn't become successful because they didn't push through that failure.
Yeah.
And because everybody's going to fail at something.
It's going to happen.
You're just going to be tested. You're constantly going to be tested in your life no matter what happens. Mm-hmm. Like you're up against changing times, challenges. There's all kinds of things. Yeah. Even, like after COVID, there's going to be a lot of changes. So
yeah.
Absolutely.
Just got to adjust. Figure it out. Got to figure it out, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, a lot of good stuff. And, for somebody that's only been doing it for, 4 years now?
Like 3 years.
3 years.
3.5, yeah.
And now you're at the point where you're about to sell your first rehab property. And I'm sure you're going to have more and even long-term investments because I know you said that that's another avenue.
Yeah.
But, we're talking to you now at 31 years old and at the trajectory you're on at 41, I think it's going to be a lot different conversation at 41. And,
I can see him owning 100 properties.
Yeah. You're looking at Kevin, right? Like, but you want to learn from him, right? And you want to, and you want to aspire to be in that playing field. And, you've got the mentality and you've got the work ethic that I can definitely see it where in 10 years it's definitely going to be there. So.
Yeah, I just want Kevin's R8 that he sold. So
he's got a lot of other nice cars, so you might want to check his garage before you make a final decision.
Yeah. Well, again, man, I appreciate you guys, inviting me on here. This is awesome.
Yeah, I loved having you on.
Yeah.
Well, like Mark said, we'll have to do a little kind of like mini podcast after you finish your house. And
tell us the whole story.
Break it down for us. And
I'll share those details with people if they want to know how to flip a house. It's not pretty, but it's cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on. This was What I Learned podcast, and check us out for our next episode.
Sweet.